Savage. What's going on, Savages? Welcome to another episode of the Savage Snowflake podcast with me, Jeff Leach. Great to have you here. Thank you very much. Welcome back for another dose of, I hope, intellectual and highbrow chat with someone who I find to be creatively wonderful. Thank you very much, of course, to all of our supporters. If you are supporting us at patreon.com/Savage Snowflake, I adore you. I appreciate you. I'm going to come over and give you an inappropriate cuddle like an uncle that you haven't seen for 7 years. And you wonder why he's at your house. Why are you even at my birthday, Uncle Jeff? Just because I wanted to show you a little bit of love. Where have you been all my life? I don't know. I've been away, traveling, trying to discover myself, spiritually growing at all times. Listen, I also want you guys to check out our sponsors, manscaped.com, refining the gentleman. If, like me, you're a hirsute individual, well, I've cut the hair off now. I've been trimming the face, and of course it makes sense that I would trim the chest hair too. You've got to do a bit of manscaping. I know a lot of gentlemen listen to this podcast, and you might be sitting there going, my girlfriend doesn't want to touch me anymore. Why on earth is that? It's because you're not taking care of your downstairs area. It's a finely coiffed topiary that should be looked after. Now, the way to do that is using the Lawnmower 2.0, a wonderful piece of kit you can get from our friends at manscaped.com. If you use the code SAVAGE20, that's SAVAGE20 at their website, you will get 20% off all of your orders. You get free shipping on every order and a wonderful free leather travel bag worth $50. So you can't say fairer than that. Check them out, manscaped.com. Joining me today is a director and writer, actually. You also wrote on this movie in particular, and you directed a movie that I had been in a very small way previously. It's Derrick Borte, director of the movie American Dreamer, which has just come out, starring Jim Gaffigan and Robbie Jones. Thank you very much for being here. How are you, Derrick?
I'm wonderful. It's so great to see you. I didn't recognize you at first, but it's great to finally, to catch up after such a while.
There you go. Yeah, because I've lost about 30 pounds, cut my hair off. I'm trying to be a superhero, Derrick. That's what I want to do, or a supervillain.
Yeah, I like it. I think you got a bright future.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. I can really tell by your tone. You were like, yeah, okay, cool. Good luck.
No, I mean that absolutely.
Thanks, man. Thanks. It looks like you probably don't need a Lawnmower 2.0. That beard is already perfectly in shape. Do you trim with scissors? Are you a scissor man?
It just depends on what's handy. I'm going for the get off my lawn look right now.
Oh, in that case, you have to trim it with a pair of garden shears for maximum intimidation. First of all, thanks very much for doing it. I know you've been incredibly busy with the promo of the film right now. You've been doing lots of interviews and chatting to various publications, celebrity reporters, all sorts about the movie. This is certainly not your first foray into the world of movie making. You obviously made the movie The Joneses. I obviously got a chance to work with you on London Town as well, which was all about the music of The Clash, starring Jonathan Rhys-Meyers and Dan Huddleston. But this is the first, as far as I know, the first movie where you've used comedic talent to tell an incredibly unfunny story. This is a very dark story.
It's true. And I think that... in casting Jim Gaffigan, to me, when his name was brought up, it was such a kind of tap the brakes kind of moment where, I knew I needed somebody who was empathetic, who was going to still remain somewhat, believe it or not, likable, even though he makes some horrible decisions with tragic consequences. And after thinking about it and talking with Jim, it just seemed like a no-brainer. And I'm so happy that we went down that road together.
Is this the because as far as I know, Jim's done smaller roles where he's been quite serious, but for the most part, his comedy, his content output has always been comedy. Is it an interesting challenge, perhaps, to work with someone whose mainstay is being funny, to find the darkness in a script like American Dreamer, which from start to finish, there's no joy in it. It's incredibly emotionally dark and twisted from the start.
Yeah, everybody works differently. Jim is someone that can slip in and out of character very easily.
Right.
And, we could be doing a very emotionally intense scene, and when we cut, he's lightening things up a little bit with a joke here and there. And I think that maybe that just shows you, that
How fucked in the head he
comedy
is.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, no, but look, comedy is his way of probably, dealing with those kind of things. And like many comics, I mean, I think he uses humor to lighten a situation, and that's what he did with us. Was he would use that between takes sometimes just to kind of get out of that headspace. So it wasn't difficult. I think that he's such a talent that for me to be able to watch him was really special in that when you see someone inhabit a character that you've written in such a way that goes beyond what's on the page and affects you on a deep kind of visceral level, that's a pleasure. So I would say it was certainly not difficult whatsoever.
Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, it was fine. It was easy. No, I get what you're saying. The thing is, though, I'm constantly conflicted myself personally on that world between my role as a stand-up comedian and my role as an actor. I know that, we having worked together previously, that again, myself, I like to crack jokes, maybe, need to rein that in a little bit. But in terms of the role that I was taking on for that movie with you, I was the light relief in some way. But I know that Robin Williams used to make a huge amount of jokes, even on some of the darkest roles and characters that he took on. And it was almost off-putting for directors sometimes, because you're creating the mood, the atmosphere of the scene, especially with a movie like American Dreamer. There is very little. There's very few moments where you could feel like you can take a breath as an audience member, because the situation just continues to escalate from start to finish, which is actually one of my favorite parts of the story and the outline of the story. The fact that at no point do you ever see the situation getting better, and I wonder whether there's a conflict there when someone is naturally very funny, their instincts, as you pointed out, most comedians are, that when something is dark or heavy, we like to mock it or turn it into a thing of ridicule to make it lighter so it's easier to deal with. But in those moments on your film, I'm assuming you don't want people to be too happy, because you need those actors to turn out a delivery and a performance that captures the misery or the sadness or the anger or the frustration.
Yeah, I think that for me personally, between takes when we're not rolling, you know, hearing something that brings a little levity to the situation is fine. It doesn't
Okay.
distract me from my job. But someone like Robbie Jones, who is amazing as Maz in this film,
Mm-hmm.
who's a method guy, who
Right.
really is Maz for those couple of weeks while we're shooting. I can tell you, riding around in that car where I was sitting on the floor, we took the passenger seat out, and I was sitting on the floor of the car with a camera on my shoulder, sometimes driving around where Jim's actually driving. He's not wearing his glasses, and he's not a guy that even owns a car. And we're doing these scenes, and Robbie's in the back seat in character, and between takes, Jim would say something to lighten the mood or whatever. And to watch the dynamic between the two of them between takes was interesting to me, because of their different approaches to how they work. I mean, Jim might need a minute before we roll the cameras to kind of get into character,
Just to compose
and then
himself back into where he was. Yeah.
exactly, to find where he is. And I would always just kind of remind him as to where we came from the last scene and kind of where we're going. And he would take a few beats and get into character, and then immediately when we cut, he will occasionally have something funny to say, whereas Robbie
Was he met
doesn't.
with a stonewall face from Robbie Jones?
uh he was met with a stonewall face and the occasional comment that was like, do you have to keep talking all the time, or things like that, like, can you
Shut the fuck up, dude. I'm trying to be
yeah,
an aggressive
yeah,
drug dealer right now, and you kind of you're making me laugh. Yeah.
yeah, no
Yeah,
doubt. So
that's what I
that was,
wonder.
that was fun to watch that dynamic. And but Jim specifically, could slip in and out of character in a way that didn't bother me, because as much as we're shooting dark material, I don't have to I don't have to act that way to direct something like that. I just have to
Absolutely.
be, focused.
The mood of
And
the shoot doesn't have to be dark just because the content
yeah,
is quite dark.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. But look, to me, what matters is that everybody there on a low budget film like this, with little time to make it, everyone was on the same page, making the same movie. I think that we were all there, kind of knowing what we were doing in a way that just made it a lot easier to shoot some of these scenes that are fairly disturbing material.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to give it too much of it away to people who haven't yet seen the movie, but even just a third of the way into the movie, something horrendously catastrophic happens, which I had slightly I had preempted it. I was like, oh yeah, that's happening. And when it did happen, it was horrendous, like a horrendous.
Yeah, yeah.
But a wonderful moment for Jim Gaffigan, really, to show the lunacy of his character. Like, this is a man on the edge who's broken, completely broken, and has given up, I think, on caring about anyone else, even though he professes to be doing a lot of what he's doing for his child, and to be to be a father and to be able to have that relationship with his son. It seems like here's a man who's just given up on caring about anyone else's situation.
Yeah, I think that, look, he's a guy that found himself out of a job without his family, and in a horrible situation, and he refuses to take any personal responsibility for where he's ended up.
Yeah.
He's blaming everyone else. He's got a sense of entitlement, and to the point of being somewhat delusional, and that he decides to take matters into his own hands, and kind of use people kind of as pawns in his attempt to reclaim the life that he had, without any regard to anyone else, even uh, really having much humanity whatsoever. I mean, I think the film, to me, is about invisible people, and this sort of intersection between capitalism and humanity, that each one of these characters kind of lives in that kind of gray area where, Jim feels like he's invisible, but once was relevant, and wants to get back to relevancy that was stolen from him.
Right.
Robbie's character Maz, I think, is trying to claw his way up from being born into this invisibility, to try to give his son a better life. I think that the issues that they're facing are similar in the broad strokes, but apply to each one of them differently.
Yeah, that was one of the takeaways that I had, because I actually wondered how much when you were writing it, what the intention was behind both of those main protagonists, or those two lead characters, because I felt like whilst they both have children who they profess to be doing things for, I got the impression neither one of them really, it was never really about their kid. It was very much about power, relevancy, and also, I mean, it's called American Dreamer, but I get the idea that it's like two approaches: a very middle of the road, middle aged white guy, from suburbia, and a younger black drug dealer trying to sort of work his way, or get himself some prominence and some power and some money within the ghetto lifestyle that he's leading. But ultimately, it felt like both of their practices and their approaches were incredibly selfish. They're very selfish characters, the two protagonists.
Yeah, I think that the way to have any sort of tension and conflict in a film, and any sort of narrative, is to have characters come to these forks in the road, and as an audience, you want an audience to say, "Don't go that way, go this way. Don't
Sure,
do it.
yeah,
Don't do it. Don't do it." And
sure.
then, of course, they're going to go that way because it's self-serving, and then it continues to cause whatever problems they have to escalate. And I think that was something we were very conscious of on this film, is just, you know people that do things, let's say, that are not necessarily considered good by broad society, might not, I mean, normally don't think they're doing something bad. They think they're acting in some sort of interest that has a motivation that feels like it's right for them.
Right.
And I think that was one of the things with all these characters that, you know, as a director speaking with these actors, it's like, you know, there are a lot of characters here that don't make good choices, but it's their truth, and you have to defend their truth because to them, each of them is making a choice that feels like it's the right choice for them to make. And if you can buy into that, then the performance will be authentic, the film will be authentic. And I think that's one of the things that I feel best about for this film is that these characters that are also flawed, um, you know, their choices are bad, but for them, they feel like they're the right choice to make.
Yeah. Yeah, in that moment, that's the snap decision they've made that ultimately leads them down the wrong path. You talked about authenticity there, and I know that obviously you don't just direct movies, you write your movies, you really work them through. On this one, you actually work with someone else. With you have a writing partner, correct?
Yeah.
Now, how much authenticity is in those characters? You're a father. You're a white man in his, I don't know, 40s, 50s. I'm not sure where you're at. Probably 40s, 30s. I don't know. I mean, you're not 30s. Got to
Yeah,
be 40.
30s. I like that.
You got to be 40, mate. I don't know. You got to be 40 at least.
At
But
least, for sure.
well, I don't know. You know, you got a little salt and pepper going on, Derek. What can I say, mate? But how much authenticity is in that character drawn from your own life? Because, you know, I'm pretty certain every dad has been pushed to breaking point by their situation, by their families, by their children, and would do anything to maintain the role of the patriarch within that family unit. You ever thought about, you know, murder, extortion, you know, kidnapping? Has that ever crossed your mind?
Well, look, thankfully, I've never been in a situation where that was a plan A, B, C, or D.
Yet, Derek, you never know
Yet,
what's going to
yet,
happen. You don't know,
exactly.
mate. Yeah.
But you know, look, I think that when you write, you know, you want to put some humanity in each of these characters in a way that you do try to draw something from your own life, um, not necessarily in a literal way, but in some kind of connected way where um, no one would ever kind of connect the dots in any way. But you know, I think the best characters have some level of reality in them, and if you can write from the heart in some way that, you know, it's either something you know or something you've seen or something you have experienced yourself, you know, I think that's going to make a better character. I've never been in some of these
I was going to
situations,
say
that's
that
for
is the
sure.
most incredibly non-committal broad answer I've ever heard. You know, sometimes you got to ride with an idea. Here's the deal, Derek. I know that I've definitely in the past had, for instance, a man making a partner's life, a girlfriend that I had's life, so miserable that I've planned out how to kill him. Like I've
Wow.
now I don't know if that just makes me a fucking lunatic. I'm sure it probably does, and I guarantee that. But I think that makes me human. I think there's a human primal instinct, especially amongst men. Like the men are very much the focus of this movie. Of course, Robbie's character's wife, you know, Maz's wife, features quite a lot during the film, and so does Jim Gaffigan's character. His wife as well is briefly in the movie. But for the most part, it's about these two men trying to be fathers in all the wrong ways, you know, to try to do what they think is the best route to ensure the continuation of that role and that purpose, which ultimately brings about catastrophe for both of them. But there's got to be, when you're writing a character, as you said, there's the best characters reveal something within ourselves that we go, God, I felt that. I would never act on it. I would never in a million years act on that thing. But yes, I know that bit. And how close have I ever been pushed to the line where if my mind had just snapped, I could have been there myself. And that's what I'm asking,
Yeah.
really, you know. How many
Well, I mean,
times you
look, I
sat
think
there and thought, you know what, I'm going to do this.
I think one of the things about Cam that I like so much as a character is that he just illustrates how each of us are a couple of really bad decisions away from being in some serious shit. I mean, it's I think that you know, I can't say that I've planned how to kill someone before. I may have wanted to, but I
There
didn't
you go.
actually make the actual plans.
Well, I
There's
didn't
your
sit.
evil villain. Your
Relax.
evil villain
I
side
didn't.
is coming out.
I didn't sit down with a sketchbook and like take notes. I just
Yeah,
mean like I
right.
gone like, oh yeah, I might have to actually kill this guy, and if I do, this is how I do it.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, look, I value my freedom a little too much to have ever actually planned to kill anyone, but maybe wanting to,
Well, part of the
sure.
plan is getting
Um,
away with it, Derek.
well,
You don't
that's
like
true. Getting away with it, yeah. But
plan
see,
to
that's
get
what
caught.
always goes wrong, which is otherwise we wouldn't have any films to make about these things.
There you
But
go.
it has to go wrong in some way.
Sure.
Look, as far as I think the biggest thing I identify with Cam is you know, when things go wrong, it's not an easy thing to look at yourself and say, what part did I play in this? It's
Right.
always easier
Yes.
to say everyone's sabotaging me, or I didn't get this movie that I wanted because there's some backroom deal going on that doesn't like it's unfair or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
When the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
reality is, it's harder just to look at yourself and say I got to get better at what I'm doing, or this happened because I didn't do something well enough. But so that part I think is something that I've felt before, and hopefully I'm trying to elevate my perspective a little bit. And even writing a character like this is a way to exercise that in some way.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's quite a therapeutic process, I think, to lay that character out and go, thank God, I've grown beyond that mindset.
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's easy
yeah.
to. Yeah, definitely. And you said it was a micro budget, and you were doing, you were shooting stuff yourself, etc., etc. Obviously, first of all, the movie looks. It doesn't look low budget. It doesn't look like it was a micro budget production.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very
Thank you.
personal, but I just assume that was a stylistic choice. The way it's shot very close up. It needs to feel like you're within it because you want to be within Cam's character almost. You want to inhabit the continued breakdown of this man's mind as he progresses through his night's activities. But also when you're looking at something like that, I mean, outside of the production value that you do have, like car crashes and chases and explosions, and there's quite a lot that you did with a micro budget there already. How do you kind of marry that budget that you have against what you would like to do stylistically with the film? Because I'm assuming once you've got your talent and they've taken their portion of that budget, and then you go, well, I got to pay cast and crew to do that, and then you go, and then we got to get the locations and blah blah blah. At what point do you go, all right, you know what, is this still going to be the film that I wanted to make when I wrote it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that um, look, there's the way to do that where you have a certain budget and you have a film that you want to make that really should never be made on that budget, and yet people try to do that anyway, and end up kind of with something that doesn't really work. I think that in our case with this, our budget was $420,000,
Oh
which
wow,
is yeah, I mean
that's
micro budget.
nothing. That's nothing.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's however, I knew based on the material that we could accomplish this in a way that would not jeopardize the film, the finished product, by shooting for 16 days,
yeah,
most of them nights, 14 and a half nights and a day and a half of daytimes. But
yeah.
I knew we could accomplish what I wanted to do with this film on that meager budget. So it felt right. I think that as long as it's the right material and the right budget, I think it makes it a lot easier to do that. Whereas if it would have been a film that was, that required, 60 days to shoot it, and all kinds of expensive toys and large cast and those kind of things, it never would have happened. But I think that the fact that it's fairly contained, um, and that it really does take place over the course of 24 hours, so you save on your wardrobe budget right
Sure,
there
sure,
because
sure.
Jim's character doesn't. Nobody changes clothes in the whole film. So we saved on our wardrobe budget was tiny.
One of the biggest locations is a car, which is great.
Exactly,
That's wonderful,
exactly.
wonderful, isn't it?
And I had a friend that actually loaned us 5 of the same car, who's got a car dealership, and he loaned us 5 cars that all matched. So we had one on the back of a lawn guy, like a landscape guy's trailer,
Right.
and towed that around as our process trailer. And we're talking high tech here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing.
And I mean, it was bare bones guerrilla filmmaking, and it was the most fun I've ever had on a show before. I mean, I think that the film we did together, London Town was incredibly rewarding in that, accomplishing a period piece set in '78 London
Yeah.
on a relatively low budget was challenging, but so rewarding to be able to make that happen. But this was the most enjoyment I've ever had in terms of just getting to make the film that I wanted to make, and just knowing that everyone was there, sleeves rolled up, standing in the same puddles together, trying to make the same film.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm still blown away that it was a $420,000 budget, because it looks. Well, no, but that's a compliment. It looks vastly higher production value than that money would suggest. It's very well done. But again, that's probably the approach that you have, or the way that you approach a project like that to make it that good. What were the changes if I were to turn around and say, hey, congratulations, Derrick, an investor's just offered up 10 million so you can remake this movie in a slightly different way? Would there be things that you would change? Would there be production concepts or aspects that you would completely overhaul if you were given a much larger budget to work with?
No,
Yeah,
I think that I would have to pass on that, because I think that this film has the edge and attention that it needs because of the way we had to make it.
absolutely.
And I I don't think it would be a wise decision to try to remake it regardless of the budget. So we maybe a sequel. I don't know. Maybe we take the 10 million and go make a sequel,
There you go. Or put a couple more explosions at the end.
or an evil villain with a British accent.
There you go. Yeah, that could
I'm
work.
just
Or
saying.
you could upgrade all 5 cars to Lamborghinis or something. There you go. That would work, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work that.
Now working with Jim, I assume this was the first time you're working with him.
Yeah, first time I've worked with him. I met him about 20 years ago on another project. I was sitting at a table much like this after auditioning, who knows how many people for a week for this part, and I'm looking down, taking notes on the last few people that had come in, and I see this headshot get slipped down in front of me of this 85-year-old woman. I just see, a headshot of an older woman, and I know we're not reading anyone for a role like that. I look up, and there's Jim, and he just kind of says, "Hey," and like doesn't say anything about the headshot. It's just like as though it's just normal. This is his headshot, and he goes and he reads for the part, and later, years later, I asked him about it. He said that it was just on the hallway out in the rehearsal space that we were using for auditions, and he just thought, let's use this as the headshot, and he pulls it off the wall and walks in and drops it in front of me. It was very, obviously he made an impression on me. I
Yeah,
cast
yeah.
him 20 years later in the lead of a film. So,
Which is ironic, because now he actually looks like that 85-year-old woman now. So
yeah, yeah, no
he's really,
doubt. Yeah.
he's really grown into the aesthetic he set for himself. I think you're also giving a man an opportunity there. Like, I know a lot of comedy talent have designs on serious roles. The concept of being able to play both, to play theatrical as well as comical, is something that's very exciting to them. Was Jim excited from the off? Did you have to sell the concept, because it was a smaller budget movie? It's not like he's walking away with millions and millions of dollars in his pocket for doing the role. How did that process go down?
He read the script and wanted to have a call. So, and I was excited about the call also. And, and he told me about his enthusiasm for the role, and we sort of talked creatively first, and then we started talking a little bit of the nuts and bolts, which was like, hey, come to Virginia. We're shooting 16 nights. You're basically getting whatever SAG micro budget minimum is, which is whatever $4.20 a day,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, uh, you're not going to have a trailer. You're not going to have, some of the perks that you might be used to when you travel around and do these massive arenas that you for stand up.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's going to be a grind. And he said, I'm in. When do you want me there? It was like he said he really wanted this role and really wanted to take the risk and showcase this side of himself. And you know, it really was. I mean, that's how easy it was. I mean, I think that he sold me, and I think that I wish I could say that I had to convince him, but I mean, he loved the material and he got it. He understood it. And after talking with me, uh, made me realize how much he understood it, and we just decided let's go do this together. I mean, he wasn't
It was
like
a no.
sending me gifts or
It was a
anything,
no-brainer. It was pretty straight setup.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that you see that. I mean, I can't wait to see the new Uncut Gems. The Adam Sandler film, the Safdie brothers film, looks amazing to me.
Haven't seen
Another
it. No.
dark. The trailer came out today or yesterday, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
another super dark turn for someone that normally is considered a comedian. And I think there's a history of that happening, and you know, uh, look, there's a reason. I've heard people say it. Jim said it. For someone to get up on a stage and put themselves through the kind of things you guys put yourselves through, to make people laugh. I mean, it comes from a place that isn't necessarily funny all the time, and
Sure.
and
In
and
fact,
what
very rarely is humor the basis of the things that we talk about. At least good comics.
right, exactly,
Good
yeah,
comics are
yeah, no
fucked in the
doubt.
head and a bit miserable. They plan out how to kill
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
That kind of thing. It's just like.
yeah, exactly.
Did you? I also wanted to find out. Did you specifically? You've been getting like some kind of celebrity support, especially from Russell Crowe. Is he just a new buddy of yours, or have you always been friends? I see about 12 tweets from him being like, "Go and watch American Dreamer. It's a great movie. My buddy Derrick Borte is doing it." Blah blah blah. I wondered
That's
if
the
that.
worst Russell Crowe impersonation I've ever
Oh,
seen.
sorry. Well, what does he sound like? Australian and drunk. Fucking
No,
go see
look,
my friend's movie. It's great. There you go, Australian. What's it called? American Dreamer. Go check it out. Is that better? I don't know what he sounds like normally.
yeah. I just finished a film with Russell. I just wrapped 2 weeks ago on a film called Unhinged with Russell, and he watched American Dreamer and loved it. And I'm happy that he's speaking publicly about it, as well as a lot of other people that are
Not a bad
that
endorsement, is
are.
it? A Hollywood superstar like that.
No, I mean, look, it just makes me feel thankful that people are watching it and then want to talk about it. And obviously, if they're people with millions of followers, that's kind of awesome as well. But
Yeah.
it just look, not every you can't please everyone all the time, but it's nice when you've got the kind of people that are responding to this film, and then wanting to share their feelings about it. I mean, just in the last couple of days, I'm blown away by some of the people that have tweeted how much they love this film and love the performances, and it's I don't take it lightly, or take it for granted. I think that it's easy. It's uh, it's easy to put something out and have people not like it and not talk about it, but to get a positive response is pretty wonderful.
Well, we were talking about reviews because you've had a mixture of reviews. The majority have been incredibly positive, actually. But there's been a couple of ones that picked it apart. The New York Times, we mentioned that one of the writers from the New York Times picked it apart a bit. But then another critic from the New York Times said they loved it. So how do you think there's still this kind of maybe what's the correct word, sensationalism within critics, film critics reviews, where often critics will just pick something apart for the sake of it? Do they do it because then they can get known as the guy who tears down movies or the girl who tears down movies, or do you think they actually give any time and energy to really seriously considering the work that's gone into making a piece of art like that?
Well, look, I respect anyone that's going out doing their job with integrity, and there's a need um, for people to write about various kinds of art, and and give their opinion and break it down responsibly, and let's say translate it for people that are their readers. I know that I can't please everyone all the time, like I said, and if someone has an issue and they express it in a way that's informative or enlightening to their readers, I can respect that. I think that
Do you actually
you know
read the reviews then across the board? Will you read bad reviews as well as good reviews on work?
look, I try not to read the reviews only because uh,
Then you might have
it
to
doesn't
plan out
affect.
how to kill someone.
Well, yeah, no. Look. I think once something's out there, yeah, I didn't. But
Look at how
this
well media
podcast can be
trained you
used
are.
against us later. Yeah.
No, not
Um,
at all, dude. It's savage snowflake. I mean, we're all about love and liberalism and
yeah,
progressive
yeah.
nature,
No,
but
I think
also
that.
savage enough to be honest. Like sometimes critics write shitty reviews, and you have to, as an auteur of that art, sometimes be like, "What the fuck did they watch?" Because it wasn't the movie that I made.
Yeah, look, I think that things are never as bad as they seem. They're never. Think that it's nice to hear that there was some positive feedback out there, which is what I'm hearing from that the reviews are overwhelmingly positive, and yet I
Absolutely, yeah.
think that look, I've heard there are a couple negative reviews that and I've heard that they're not, let's say, uh, responsible journalism in terms of how they what they say as far as what they don't like.
Well, there
One
was
of them was
literally only one that I can think of.
criticizing how a
The
character
rest were
looked.
very positive, and then there was only one that picked it apart. But I have to go, and then don't get me wrong, subjective. Look, it's the same with comedy or with any art form. Of course, art is subjective. One person might hate what another person loves. But I also think when it comes to the process, once you're a film critic and it comes to the process of reviewing a movie, you have to have some industry knowledge of how a production is put together, the kind of talent that's involved in it, the effort that went into the script writing, the budget that movie was on as well will play a huge role, etc., etc. And to categorically write something off when so many other critics have said so many incredibly positive things about a project, you've got to question maybe this person's just a little bit off the money, or they're doing it for a sensationalist. Look at me, I'm tearing this thing down. Aren't I brave and clever?
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. I think that everyone's entitled to their opinion, obviously, and it's you know, if I had an explanation for how all these things worked, I would have probably come up with some algorithm and sold it to Google, and would be off on an island somewhere,
You don't own an
doing
island
whatever
yet?
I
You don't
want.
have an island.
I
How
don't
do you
know where
not have an
that's going.
island?
I just was.
Or
No,
you
I
could just
don't.
send Russell Crowe round to their house. He could go and knock on the door and have a word with them.
Yeah, maybe that's
He's an
an
intimidating
interesting
guy.
idea.
Yeah, he's an intimidating guy. I'd like that. I wish every reviewer who ever reviewed someone's movies, if the director and a couple of the core cast members would actually knock on their door and go, "Hey, let's have a more." It's like trolls, internet trolls. If you went and knocked on the door and just went, "Hey, listen, I got some thoughts about your review, and I'd love to discuss it
Yeah.
with you. I'd love to really pick apart why you didn't like my movie." And so many other people did. I'd really love to know. And I think they'd crumble under that pressure.
Yeah, it just reminds me of those mean tweets. I think that one of the late night shows has have celebrities come on and read the
Read
mean
out their own
tweets
mean
about
tweets.
them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would love to, if you want to send me this bad review that you're talking about for the film, I'd be happy to read it out loud on the show here if you want me to.
Nah, it's all right. No one even read it anyway. I'm sure it was just a passing trace. So you've worked in the realms of comedy. You've worked in the realms of very serious theatrical pieces. Now you're fusing comedians with dark, twisted theatrical things. Do you have a camp that you prefer to work in? Is there is your first love creating comical offerings, or is it creating dark drama?
I think that I just gravitate towards. It all starts with the script. you know, regardless of genre. I think that if there's a script that you know, that I can make it past page 10 on, you know, like I think that, you know, a lot of times it's just hard to keep reading. And if you can't keep reading, you're not going to keep watching if it's ever made
Sure.
into a film to me. I think that, you know, a film that, I mean, a script that to me either has great potential or is a great script is where I would always start. And then, you know, kind of, you know, what do I think I could do with it? How do I think I could cast it? And, you know, regardless of genre, I think that you know, it's about what's a challenge to me, what's something that I think can help me become better at what I'm trying to do. And you know, facing fears of you know, different things that I have not done before. You know,
Right.
this last film, you know, it has big action sequences, and you
You
know,
hadn't done that before in a movie, so
not quite on that scale. And
mhm.
you know, it's a challenge, and you know, it's that's part of the rush of this is doing things that you have not done before and knowing that, you know, kind of you got to prep it out, and you know, whatever you do is going to end up on the screen. So you need to learn quickly and challenge yourself to face uncomfortable situations. And you know, like I said, to me it's just about how can I get better at this every day.
Yeah. Standout favorite moment from the shooting schedule? Because I mean, it has to be a moment on every shoot where you'll look back either fondly or with frustration, but also amusement probably after the fact.
Wow, you know, I the one I would say would probably be too much of a spoiler for the film, unfortunately. But you know, there's a scene with Jim that uh, is a is a very big scene that you know we had talked about and prepped for a long time, and you know, seeing him go there emotionally and you know, emote, you know, you know, act obviously in this situation in a way that feels so real and so powerful, to where you feel it, you know, in your gut and when you're watching it. You know, seeing this guy face down his fears and challenge himself to go someplace that he's never gone on camera before, that was pretty special. You know, that was pretty, you know, albeit incredibly dark material. Um, you know, that was the moment we had talked about. And I'm not telling you what the moment is,
I mean, I
obviously. You
know I
probably,
know what the moment is because I've seen
yeah,
it,
you
so I
know
know
it, but
100%. Yeah,
I think it's,
but maybe it's the
yeah,
concept of being able to push an actor to a place they'd never been before, possibly. You know,
right.
pretend I
Yeah,
can't imagine
something
Jim
that,
Gaffigan ever having to invoke that level of like complete and
right. Yeah.
utter
Whatever that's
torment.
called. Yeah.
Torment. Let's go with torment.
Torment. Yeah. And I think that, you know, having been a moment that we talked about for months ahead, you know, finally being there on the day and seeing it unfold and you know, and seeing, you know, a couple months of prep work materialize in front of you in a way that feels so, um, that's good stuff, man. That's, you know, that's why you do this, you know, because
Yeah,
it's I don't know what other job you could have where you get to have those kind of experiences.
yeah. You're a straight down the line guy, Derek. I'm learning more about you. I was expecting like, well, there was this one day that Jim turned up in a moo and just handed out bananas to the whole cast. It was a pretty big day. We had a good chuckle about that. You're like,
They told you about that day?
yeah.
Wow.
No, he does that all the time. Apparently, that's just that's a rumor that goes around about Jim Gaffigan. Yeah, every time he comes to
Yeah, I haven't seen the moo and the bananas yet.
social gatherings, dude. Yeah, birthdays, bar mitzvahs. He'll always turn up with a basket of bananas and just a big floral print dress.
Okay, that's
That's what I heard. I
I
don't know.
maybe I'm not in the NFL yet, but hopefully at some point, you know, I'll get to see that side of him.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the next project for you? So you've just been working with Russell Crowe on a movie.
Yeah, just wrapped Unhinged about 2 weeks ago, and
I
it's
imagine that. Sorry to interrupt you. I imagine that is a slightly different budget, scale of movie, etc. to American Dreamer. Is that a
yeah,
strange
yeah,
process
definitely.
going from this and to this and working with? Don't get me wrong, Jim Gaffigan's a huge star, but you know, is that quite interesting and fun to go, oh, I'm going from my own kind of independent project that's mine and very much my baby, and now I'm going to go and work with Russell Crowe on this huge blockbuster that's, you know, that is that a strange process?
Yeah, very different. I mean, you know, it's a machine, you know, it's a machine that's just kind of you know, the production entity is a machine in a slightly different way than just me and, you know, some friends that decide to make a movie. You know, it's you know, you find the collaborative chemistry there as you go along, but in the beginning, it's kind of walking into a room with people that you don't know, that sometimes don't know each other, and you just kind of have to figure out how a lot of that works pretty quickly. Um, and you know, you have a lot longer schedule and a lot more toys to play with, and yet essentially on the day when you're actually working, it's pretty much like the same thing as everything else. You know, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
once you're there, I feel like time kind of slows down on set, and you know, the objective for the day is very clear, and you just try to make your day and get the best material you can, and um, you know, it definitely made me want to like kind of call my friends up and say, you know, let's find another small movie to go make, and yet that was exciting. The bigger movie was exciting also. You know, it's I think that just, you know, for me, it's just about constantly trying to find new challenges, and like I said, I, you know, keep saying, you know, it's just about how do I get better at this? You know, how do I grow in every day? How do I, you know, stay the dumbest guy in the room and surround myself with smart people and try to learn from each of them? You know, I think that's really kind of what it's all about.
Speaking about, you know, you've mentioned now a couple of times this concept of becoming better at what you do. What are aspects of your filmmaking so far and your career as a director that you are already aware, oh, I need to work more at that element of what I do, or that aspect of what I do? Let's get very honest with it. What are elements that you want to be better at, that you think you can be better at?
Um, I think I'm fairly flatline in terms of, you know, not. I don't think I've ever lost my cool on set.
So you'd like to
But I
scream at someone. That's what you'd like to work on.
Well, you know, the occasional scream for effect at the right time, if the timing is right, can always, you know, possibly be useful. But I think that, you know, let's say if I'm in the moment, and I'm kind of focused on something in my own head, I probably need to do a little better job of responding in a more thought out, less gruff way to people occasionally.
Okay, all right.
You
You're a
know,
little hard. You're a little hard. Derek's a little mean.
I mean, I'm not mean. I just think that you know, if I'm, you know, kind of running through something, you know, I need either that or I need to just get some of
You
those
get the
things
blinkers
to
on. You
put
get the
on.
tunnel. You get the tunnel
Yeah,
vision. So then you forget what's going on here
yeah,
because you're like, look, I'm trying to get this thing right. But
right,
that's the
exactly.
OCD nature of a director, though. I think that they're very, very focused on singular elements one by one, and I think that's just surely just a part and parcel of being a director and having to look at a big picture and make every aspect of it work correctly. You have to be very focused on each part at a different point.
Yeah. I mean, look, you've been in, you know, you've worked with me on a number of scenes, you know, on a couple days in a row.
Yeah, you were
You tell
terrifying.
me.
So aggressive. Are you just screaming, kicking shit
Yeah,
over?
right.
Jeff, would you stop cracking fucking jokes? I think that's what your exact words. Or I don't know, can't remember what you said. You big red
Yeah.
coat, limey pussy. I can't remember what you called me, but there was definitely some physical abuse.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh no,
You
wait,
didn't
sorry.
report it though. What happened?
That was a club I went to. That was a different experience. Sorry, my apologies. No, you were very nice to work with. I don't think we had the depth of relationship on set that allowed me to know much about you in general as a man or as a director, because my role there was fleeting. You know, I was two small scenes, definitely, you know, part of the story, part of the narrative, but I certainly wasn't. I didn't walk away with that with any aspersions that oh wow, I'm a supporting cast member. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to win best supporting actor for that role necessarily, because I was more just like a story arc, you know, construct, like right, here's some tickets. But
there are no small roles, Jeff.
hey, listen, there's more small roles than there are big roles in movies. That's true.
But your film is only as good as the worst performance in it. You know, you don't want to. So there's no small roles.
Now you've outlined that I was the worst performance in the
No,
movie.
come on, man, you were great. You were great. I don't think that I don't take any performance or any role is small to me because
Understood.
they're important to me. Because if it doesn't work, it's going to take people out of the film.
Absolutely.
So,
No, of course.
you know,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what you could work on. I'm not sure. You could work on, I don't know, just maybe bringing the beard in even more severe. Maybe grow the bottom a bit longer so it's more Lenin-like. That would be pretty good. Yeah, get a bit more length.
Gotcha.
Slightly less depth. That's about it. That's all my feedback. Constructive criticism.
Okay.
I'm not famed for my constructive criticism, really.
Gotcha,
All right. Well, listen.
gotcha.
I know you're an incredibly busy man, and you're also in edits for your next movie, so you probably need to get back to that. Just to give us a little bit more for those who haven't seen any of the films, if you were to give a nice, I'm sure you've already had to do this many times in a lot of press junkets over the last few weeks, but if you were to surmise the story, the narrative of American Dreamer, what can people expect? What is the story that you wanted to tell that they can take away when they go and see this movie? What would that be?
I think that I can't travel with this film to tell people what to think. So I'll tell you what I kind of hope they get out of it, which is, I hope it's a thrill ride, edge of your seat, white knuckle thrill ride that you can't take your eyes off of. And then I hope that some of the issues and social commentary that are laced throughout are things that get people to want to have a conversation afterwards.
Yeah.
To talk about some of these issues. I hope they're presented in a way that sparks conversation, and that the thrill ride of this film brings people through it where they don't really feel conscious of the fact that they're also kind of, absorbing some social commentary.
I think also, and this, if you don't mind saying, I think be prepared to walk away from the movie and watching the whole thing through. Again, I'm going to be very conscious of trying not to give any kind of spoilers, but be prepared to be given a very real outcome. I think a lot of movies like to push for the utopian ending and the how is this going to come right? Whereas all of my favorite movies are the ones that leave me going, what? This is like, and then that's great. It's like it catches you off guard. I think it certainly catches you off guard. And a story of one father breaking down and ruining the life of another father as well. I think in a lot of ways, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, listen, man.
Did
thanks
you
so
do
much.
that when you saw it? Did you do that?
At the end, I was like, well, actually, I want to say what I thought and what I thought the underlying narrative was, because I think it was a commentary on lots of things, incredibly prevalent given today's politics, social climate, etc., etc. But I saw like an exasperated, angry, middle America white man destroying lots of lives, and ultimately we're left wondering how much of that he's going to have to actually deal with, and I wondered whether that was a little bit of an underlying racial commentary on how America is built to keep certain people destitute and without a chance of survival, and to allow other people to exist even if they're morally and ethically so fucking off point you want to scream at the screen the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if that's what you got, then the film is a success. In that, I just wanted it to be a reflection of the world that I see around me right now.
Yeah,
and it's not a celebration of that. It just is a reflection of that. It's a snapshot of that.
Absolutely not a celebration. No, just laying out the facts almost going like, hey, here's a snapshot into what real life can be and how it can play out for certain people depending on their what chances they've been afforded in life.
Absolutely.
given their various privileges or lack thereof, I guess. Yeah, wonderful.
No doubt. I want to know what these pictures are behind you, by the way.
Oh, what have we got up here? We got there's Daenerys Targaryen over here. These are just things that from various events I've done and Comic Cons and stuff. That's Daenerys. I bought her at New York Comic Con from an artist there. There's Harley Quinn. There's Assassin's Creed over here, Syndicate. I did some hosting for Ubisoft, and that was for the Syndicate event. And then there's some artwork up there from New Zealand and all sorts. Just artwork, man. You know, I'm a creative guy, dude.
Cool. Yeah, no, I know.
Looking at dark, twisted artwork, that really brings me out of myself. Hey, listen, Derrick, thank you so much for coming and talking to me. I appreciate it, or Skyping in. If people want to check the movie out, it's out right now. American Dreamer.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were asking me to.
No, yeah, I am. Yeah, give me the.
It's on all the platforms, man. It's on iTunes. It's on Amazon or Hulu. It's on everything. Watch it. If you like it, tell your friends about it.
Yeah, and if you don't, send Derrick detailed constructive criticism, and he'll come over to your house with Russell Crowe. And depending on how mean you were, you'll get a different kind of beatdown from two beautiful salt and pepper dads just coming over and just kicking your ass. It'd be great. And I might plan out your death. Derrick, thank you so much. People want to keep in contact with you. They can find you on social media, I guess, if they want to see the new projects and keep up to date. Is it just at Derrick Borte on Twitter and Instagram, correct?
You got it, yeah.
There you go. And that's with a double RICK BORTE. Make sure to watch American Dreamer. It's out now. And thank you very much for joining me, sir. I hope I'll see you again soon.
Always a pleasure.
Take care, dude. Bye-bye.
Great to see you, Jeff. Bye.